All right, so it's 1 o'clock, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. First and foremost, welcome everybody. Very excited to be here and have you guys join. I wanna welcome everyone on behalf of TurboTax and Uber. My name is Danny Gonzalez. I'm a senior marketing manager with TurboTax. And we're gonna have the pleasure of sharing with you today a lot of insights and helpful information to help you get your taxes done right and get insights from one of our certified public accountants at TurboTax, which I'll introduce in a little bit. But before we get started, just a couple of house rules and to help you guys. I don't know if we can go to the next slide. During the webinar, I want to make sure everyone understands that you will have the opportunity to ask questions. And so if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's going to be a button that says Q&A. You will have the opportunity to ask questions throughout the webinar in real time. And we have tax experts available that will answer your questions. And so just to make sure you understand how to do that, you can just type your questions into the Q&A, tap send. You'll see a reply once our tax experts respond. And then we'll also have a group of similar questions and we'll answer them out loud after the presentation. We can go to the next slide. So before we get started, I just want to remind everyone of the fantastic benefits that you have with TurboTax in partnership with Uber. Just to remind everyone how to get your free TurboTax self-employed taxes done. You can get them on the online portal within Uber. Just click on the tax information tab. This is within the driver portal. Once you see the TurboTax imagery, you can see on the bottom left, file for free. You click on the get started, and that will send you directly to a special landing page that we've created just for Uber earners. And you can click and file for free automatically there on the right-hand side. So with that, I want to go on to the next introduction. I'm going to introduce Lisa Green-Lewis. Lisa Green-Lewis is a TurboTax CPA, and so I'll let her introduce herself. She's going to be presenting and sharing all of the information that's going to help everyone with their taxes this year, specifically self-employed taxes.
Yes, thank you, Danny, and thank you everybody for joining. I know everybody is really busy, so we really appreciate it, but we want to help you, maximize your savings on your taxes and share with you some tips you may not know. So as Danny said, my name is Lisa Green-Lewis, and I have been doing taxes for over 20 years. I've been with Intuit TurboTax for going on 10 years now. I've held positions as a public auditor, controller, operations manager, but my passion is taxes, saving people money. I've always been able to understand them and break them down easily for people. And I just love saving people money on their taxes. So that's what I'm here to do today. And that's what I do for TurboTax. I've also contributed to publications like US News World Report, Huffington Post, and been on broadcasts, and also been on the Steve Harvey Show and Ellen Show, doing fun things, making taxes fun on those shows. And so for our agenda today, first of all, we're going to go through just being self-employed. What does that mean? A lot of you may be new to Uber, new Uber earners, and not realize what self-employed means. And then also, the tax forms that you're going to receive and be using when you're doing your taxes. We're also going to be going through how you report your rideshare income. And then one thing everybody loves to hear about is maximizing your deductions and your vehicle deductions, which is one of the most popular deductions that you guys can get. And then, with the events that occurred last year, there was coronavirus relief that came about, and some of that relief may be relevant to you. So we want to share that with you and how you can save on your taxes with that coronavirus relief. And then also just taxes and estimated taxes and something called qualified business income deduction. That's a fairly new deduction that came about with tax reform. We want to share some information around that, and then also walk through common questions we hear and also answer some of the questions that you have. So to get started, some of you may be new to being an Uber earner or self-employment. So just want to go through the common terminology you hear and break down what it means to be self-employed. So if you're an independent contractor, a sole proprietor, or you own your own business, you are considered self-employed. If you are in the business to earn money, you are considered self-employed. And you will see some differences. If you've been an employee, you know that you have an employer, you will receive a W-2 form. If you're self-employed, you're going to see some different forms. So a 1099 NEC, it used to be a 1099 MIS, but now your income would be reported on a 1099 NEC, or you may see a 1099K, which we're going to walk through those forms. And also reporting that on your taxes, your income and expenses will be reported on a Schedule C. So now that you're in business for yourself, how does this impact your taxes? We talked about you'll be filing a Schedule C now. You will file that Schedule C with your personal taxes, so Form 1040. And that's also where a lot of your personal deductions, if you have kids, a family, you'll get deductions and credits on that Form 1040, but your Schedule C will also accompany that. Your Schedule C will report your income and your expenses directly related to your business, and that's where you get your net income from your business. If you're driving for multiple companies, you would report all of that on your Schedule C, because the IRS, they only want to know, what your business is. So if you're driving for multiple companies, you're considered a driver. That's your category. One of the big perks for being self-employed is you get a lot of tax deductions that employees don't get. And we're going to talk about some of those deductions, as well as, don't forget about your medical expense deduction. If you're an employee, usually you have to itemize your deductions to be able to deduct medical insurance premiums. But when you're self-employed, that is a deduction against your self-employment income. So that's one thing to point out. And then when you're self-employed, you do have self-employment taxes. So when you have an employer, they are withholding those self-employment taxes, and that's for Medicare and Social Security. And then your employer pays 1/2 of that. But when you're self-employed, you are paying the entire, it's 15.3% of your net income. So that's one thing to remember, but also you're able to deduct 1/2 of that on your taxes. So we talked a little bit about when you're an employee, you receive a W-2. Rideshare drivers do not receive a W-2. You will receive the new form 1099 NEC, that's for non-employee compensation, or a 1099K. A 1099K, you will see that if you have 200 transactions and make $20,000. So you may not receive that form if you don't hit those limits. And then also a 1099 NEC, you will get that if you make $600 or more. So even if you don't get that form, you should report your self-employment income. And then also you have the ability to pull your income and some of your expenses from the tax summary directly from Uber. And then here's the example of the forms that you will receive. So previously we talked about you did used to see a 1099 NIF, but that was replaced by the 1099 NEC. So one of the big things, being self-employed, it comes with all the perks of being able to deduct your expenses. So some of the expenses you could write off are your cell phone, your vehicle expenses, which is a huge expense, which we'll talk more about. With the vehicle expenses, you can write off expenses directly related to your business use for your car, and that's either with the standard mileage method or the actual expense method, which we'll dive into. And you can also claim rideshare gap insurance, rideshare fees, supplies. If you bought water and snacks for your, for your passengers, you're able to deduct that. Business taxes and licenses, all of that can be deductible. And then I talked about, the events that occurred last year, and there were several forms of relief that came out for self-employed. So under the Families First Coronavirus Relief Act, they passed the qualified sick and family leave credit. So if you were impacted by coronavirus, let's say you had to take off from driving or delivering, and you had reduced hours, you may be able to claim these. Or even if your family members were affected by coronavirus, or if your child's daycare was closed and you had to work reduced hours, you may be able to claim these. And these credits can be worth thousands of dollars. And Intuit created a credit estimator to help you figure out what these credits would be. And they are on our self-employed, the credit estimator is on our self-employed coronavirus relief center. So you can go there and figure out what these credits are. Also TurboTax, we have proactive guidance around the events that occurred last year. So here's an example from the program that, makes you aware of these credits and asks you to start answering simple questions, and will help you claim those credits. Number two, there was also the deferral of the 50% of Social Security tax. So I talked about your self-employment taxes that you may have to pay. With this deferral, you're able to defer those taxes. And so 50% of it you would have to pay by December of this year, and then the other 50% by December of 2022. So you would not have to pay all of those taxes this year when you file. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about the expanded unemployment benefits. So there were several relief packages that passed, and each of them had expanded self-employment benefits for self-employed. This is the first time that self-employed were able to get those benefits. One thing to call out, usually unemployment benefits are taxable, but under the American Rescue Plan that was passed in March, there was retroactive relief for 2020 taxes, and you were able to earn $10,200 tax-free. So that would not be on your taxes. And then if you're married filing jointly, that's $20,400. And all of this information is, on our site, and also proactive in our program. So you don't need to know all of these rules. So tracking mileage, that's one of the most important things. I think as an Uber earner, you spend most of your time in the car and you drive a lot of miles. So we want to share with you the two methods of claiming your car expenses. So standard mileage, that's where you can deduct 57.5 cents per mile that you drive, and then plus parking, tolls, and personal property taxes. That would be additional. If you choose the actual expense method, that is your actual expenses on your car. So gas, oil, maintenance, tires, um, insurance, even lease expenses, all of that is included in the actual expense method. You have to choose between the two. You can't do both. You can't claim standard mileage and then some of your actual expenses. One great thing about TurboTax Self-Employed, we ask you simple questions about your car usage, and we choose the method that gives you the maximum deduction. So that's one thing to remember. Okay, and then we talked about the self-employment taxes. So if your net income is $400 or more, then you have to pay self-employment taxes. And those taxes are the 15.3% of your net income. So that's why it's really important to maximize your deductions too. You want to lower your taxable income, and also in turn, you'll be lowering your self-employment taxes when you maximize your deductions. So make sure you keep track of your deductible expenses. And so the self-employment tax, TurboTax figures that all out for you as well. And you don't pay this, you pay this when you file your return. So it's all calculated when you do your taxes, but you also receive a deduction for half of your self-employment taxes. And then another difference when you're self-employed, you need to pay estimated taxes because you don't have an employer withholding those federal taxes for you. So you have to pay quarterly estimated taxes. So generally, if you expect to owe 1,000 or more in taxes, then you would pay estimated taxes. The amount is based on your estimated taxable income for the year, and then it's divided by 4. And so we have these quarterly estimated tax deadlines. One of them passed, one of them was April 15th. I know there were some extensions in the tax deadlines. One thing to call out, the IRS did not extend that estimated tax deadline for the 2021 taxes. And then also, one thing to keep in mind, you can annualize your income to avoid penalties for those quarters if you missed a quarter. The IRS knows that you don't get all of your income evenly throughout the year. And one thing I'm surprised a lot of people don't know about this annualizing. A lot of people may make more of their money at the end of the year. So the IRS allows you to recognize that income. Let's say you earned most of it in the last 2 quarters. Then when you annualize, you won't get a penalty for those other 2 quarters that you didn't make estimated payments. And TurboTax will figure all of that out for you as well. That's built into the product. And one more reminder, the second quarterly estimated tax payment is coming up June 15th. So that's one thing to keep in mind. And then we talked about the qualified business income deduction. That's a fairly new deduction. It came with tax reform and it started in 2018, tax year 2018. And it's 20% of your qualified business income from your, the income that you earn from your business. And there are income threshold limits that you have to meet. So 163,300 for if you're single, 326,600 married filing jointly. But this is another additional deduction that you'll be able to get besides, your expenses directly related to your business. And then common questions we hear, the things that I can write off. So car washes, definitely. I mean, you're using your car directly for your business. So you want to keep a clean car. So the car washes would be deductible. Gas, we talked about how you deduct the gas, either using the standard mileage rate or the actual expense method. Clothes, unfortunately, you cannot write off clothes. The only way you could write off clothes is if you were required to wear a uniform. The IRS, they only allow uniforms and something that you would not wear on a regular basis out in public. Um, Hotels, as a Uber driver, I would only say if you were required to drive for a specific job that that you picked up and you had to drive far and stay in a hotel, that would be the only way that a hotel would be deductible. Lunch and dinner while you're out, no, unfortunately, you cannot deduct that. Generally, self-employed people can deduct that if they are, if they're taking out clients, they would be able to deduct it. But your clients, I would say only, the snacks that you provide in the car, but not lunch and dinner personally. And then all of your mileage. So you can't deduct all of your mileage. You can deduct the portion that is related to business. And then it's specific to, so when you're driving to pick up a passenger or driving to a restaurant, if you're an earner for Uber Eats, and then taking your passenger somewhere, or for Uber Eats, delivering the food, that would be the mileage you track. But you have to take out your personal mileage, which when you use TurboTax, it asks simple questions about your business mileage as well as your personal mileage. And then it figures out the percentage for you that you've driven for your business. Your car payment, yes, you would be able to deduct your car payment if if you use the actual method. And then rental car, that's a question that a lot of Uber earners have. So usually the IRS states that if you lease a car or you own a car, you can use the standard mileage rate or the actual method. When you rent a car as an Uber earner, you can deduct that. It would be under car and equipment rental in the program, but we walk you through that. So you would be able to deduct your car rental as well as your gas if you rent a car. And then what if you didn't keep track of your mileage? I would say, I believe you may have some of your mileage in your tax summary from Uber, but also some of the mileage, like driving to a passenger, you may not have that. I would try to recreate that record as much as you can so you don't miss out on that deduction. And then what if I owe and cannot pay the IRS? So the tax deadline is coming May 17th. You want to try to pay as much as you can. If you can pay 90% of what you owe, you will not get a penalty for not paying. But if you absolutely cannot pay, the IRS will work with you. They have installment agreements. Installment agreements allow you to pay what you owe over 6 years. So I would definitely still, file by May 17th. The one thing I always call out is if you file an extension, a lot of people think filing an extension is an extension to pay, but it's not. It's just an extension to file your taxes. So I would just try to file. If you owe, the IRS will send something to you, stating what you owe, and they give you the options you can go online and apply for an installment agreement. And then we want to just share some other free resources that we have that will help you with your taxes and help you figure out, other ways to save money on your taxes. We have the Self-Employed Coronavirus Relief Center. There are tax tips there and tools that you can use to help you save money. And we're consistently updating it with all the coronavirus relief. And also it has our tax credit estimator there that will help you figure out how much qualified sick and family leave credit you're eligible for. And also you can see like the information I shared with you about the deferral of self-employment taxes. You'll be able to find out about that there too. And then we also have our Coronavirus Tax Center that is being updated consistently with all of the new provisions that are coming out around coronavirus, the latest from the IRS. So you can go there and find out tips that are relevant to you. And then this is just a sample of some of our blog content. We have a ton of content on the blog in English and Spanish, and we are updating it constantly. We publish daily on the blog. And then back to Danny, for some of you may have tuned in a little later, so he wants to share how you can get TurboTax self-employed.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Yeah, just really quickly before we go in a little bit deeper into Q&A, just wanted to remind the group now that we have, looks like we've got a large group now on the line, to remind folks how you can get access to the 100% discount for TurboTax self-employed through your Uber driver portal. So simply you want to go to your driver portal and click on the tax information tab. When you click on that tab, you'll be directed to this page here on the left-hand side where you'll see a TurboTax sort of hero image, and you can click on the button Get Started, and that'll direct you over to a special landing page created just for Uber earners. And you'll see here you have two options. You can get TurboTax Self-Employed, which is our DIY service, 100% for free. Or if you'd like more assistance from a CPA live on your screen, that is also offered 50% off for Uber earners. So you have both options there when you land on the landing page. So hopefully this is helpful and gives everyone an idea of how to get that special discount that we offer Uber earners. So with that, I'm gonna go into Q&A with Lisa. We're gonna go over the top questions that we had through the chat, and Lisa will answer them. All right, so starting with first question, Lisa, question that really rose to the top is, how do I track expenses and deductions?
Yes, so it would be best to, any expenses directly related to your business, keep track of those receipts, and whether you sit down weekly, monthly, or quarterly, you want to sit down and gather those all together. You can use QuickBooks Self-Employed. QuickBooks Self-Employed allows you to track your income and your business expenses and your mileage year round, and then that easily transfers into your TurboTax Self-Employed tax return, so you don't have to enter anything, over again.
Awesome, great. So another question that rose to the top was, what if I use a rental vehicle for rideshare? Could I still deduct standard mileage deductions?
Yes, so unfortunately, you can't deduct the standard mileage deduction. The IRS states the standard mileage deduction is if you lease a car or own it. But if you rent your car, you can still deduct it. It would be under car and rental equipment, and you can also deduct your gas. And there's a specific area in TurboTax Self-Employed where you do that, but it easily walks you through it. One thing I was going to point out with TurboTax Self-Employed, it searches for industry specific deductions, and your industry is very specific. So as soon as you put in that you're an Uber driver or earner, it will look for those deductions specific to you. So the program becomes very personalized, and it knows that, hey, car expenses are the biggest expenses you have, and you may lease a car, own a car, or rent a car. So that will already be basically set up for you. And then if you have questions, we have our TurboTax Live tax experts that you could connect to live via one-way video, and they can answer your questions and guide you along the way. And also with TurboTax Self-Employed, you're matched with a tax expert that specializes in self-employment taxes.
Awesome. Similar to the question here, are your rental payments deductible? If so, for example, if you're leasing a vehicle to do your ride share, is that something that you can deduct?
So if you're leasing your vehicle, yes, it would be deductible as an actual expense, and it would be for the lease payment along with all your other expenses. If you're renting a vehicle, that's a little different, but you're still able to deduct it. It's deductible as a car rental expense.
Got it. How about if I want to deduct my home office? Is that something I can do as an Uber driver?
So home office expenses, if you're self-employed, usually you can deduct a home office. The IRS states that it has to be dedicated and exclusive to your business and used regularly for your business. So I would say, you know, as an Uber driver, your regular location for your business is your car. So I would say you cannot deduct that.
That's helpful. So a very specific question on this next one. So I had an accident in my car during a delivery for Uber Eats. Are the repairs deductible?
Yes. So if you claim the actual expense method for your car, you would be able to deduct those repairs as long as they weren't reimbursed by your insurance.
Excellent. Helpful. How does a car lease differ from a purchase when it comes to deducting mileage and expenses?
So with a car lease, once you pick the standard mileage method, you have to use that throughout the term of the lease. You can't switch. Whereas if you own a car, you could switch between the standard mileage method or the actual method. One thing to call out, once you put a car you own into place, you have to use the standard mileage method the first year.
Great, thank you. I think you kind of covered this, but might be a good recap here. What are some common common expenses for ride sharing delivery drivers that are deductible? What are the top or most common?
Top, I think we covered a lot. Your car, of course. If you're a driver, the supplies, any taxes and fees you pay, tolls, parking, car washes, those would be some of the top. As a Uber, if you drive for Uber Eats, still car would be number one, and any fees and taxes that you're paying.
Excellent. Okay. Next question is, I didn't receive a 1099 from Uber. What should I use to file my taxes?
Yes, so if you didn't receive a 1099, I know you can use your tax summary from Uber. You would be able to look at that.
Got it. Next question is, are personal grooming expenses deductible?
No, unfortunately, personal grooming expenses would not be deductible, as well as clothes. If you were required to wear a uniform, then you would be able to deduct those costs, but not your personal clothes that you could wear every day or your grooming expenses.
Excellent. Got it. Good one. The next question is, when can I start counting mileage towards rideshare? Is it when I pick up my first guest?
So you can start counting as soon as you start driving to go pick up your guests, and then from picking up your guests to where you're dropping them off. And then the same with Uber Eats. So if you are going to the restaurant, you start counting the mileage there, and then from picking up at the restaurant to delivering.
Excellent. The next question is, do I need to track every receipt to be able to claim those deductions?
You should track every receipt. It's not like you don't have to include them with your tax return, but if you want to claim deductions, you should keep track of them just in case anything is ever needed later. QuickBooks Self-Employed, they have the ability you could capture your receipts with a photo, so you don't have to, keep track of all those pieces of paper.
Awesome. The last question that really surfaced a lot, I don't know, Lisa, if you could go back to the screen where we have the where you can access the discount real quick. So last question is, how do I access the TurboTax offer? So I'm just gonna, again, repeat it, but to help with the visual here. So for those folks asking the question of how do I access the free offer for TurboTax, you'd want to log into your Uber driver portal. From there, you would want to click on the tab Tax Information. Once you click on that, you'll see on the left-hand side, you'll see this screen pop up where you see File for Free with TurboTax Self-Employed. You want to click on the Get Started button. By doing that, that's going to send you to a website on the right-hand side where you're going to see an exclusive Uber and TurboTax landing page. And then it'll give you the option for our DIY TurboTax Self-Employed product, which is available 100% for free for Uber earners. Or if you want some help from a TurboTax CPA along the way and live on your screen to help you with any questions, we also offer our TurboTax Live Self-Employed product for 50% off. And that's given you the ability to connect with a TurboTax self-employed tax specialist. So hopefully that answers the last question. And I think that wraps up the questions. I know there's a lot of questions being fielded and we're answering them, but I think that wraps it up. Lisa, is there anything else you want to leave the group with?
I was just going to say May 17th is coming up pretty fast. So just gather all of your receipts together and your income, and just keep in mind that TurboTax easily walks you through everything. And then you can also connect with the TurboTax Self-Employed tax expert if you have any questions and need help.
Fantastic. Yeah, so hopefully this was helpful for all of those folks, Uber earners. Really would say file before May 17th. I know there's going to be a lot of people getting everything sorted, but hopefully this information was helpful. And just know that the product is very personalized for very specific use cases like Uber earners. So have the expectation that you're going to be taken care of 100% and that you're going to be able to identify and uncover all the deductions that you qualify for as an Uber earner and as a rideshare driver. So thank you very much. Appreciate everyone coming out today. This has been recorded, and so do expect an email with the recording so you can watch it at your leisure and get any questions that you might still have, and they're going to be recorded here as well. So thank you everybody very much.